All right, good evening. It is 7:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, there's really no new material that was on the course for this week. The only thing new and additional was that you had the final project due. And the final project is coming up due, of course, this Tuesday evening at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So what I'll do, I'll actually go over a few things, actually an example that you can follow along with. And an example that was kind of like what your final project is. So if you understand what we do here for this example, it shouldn't be that difficult to go from it to what your final project should look like. Okay, so let's imagine we have some cars, right? Let's have a car array and let's put some cars in it. Say we have a Ford, we have a Chevy, we have a Jeep, and we have a Honda. Okay, so let's say we have these four cars in an array, right? And let's just print it out so we can see what it looks like. Print cars, right? So let me print this out. Of course, it just prints out what our array is: Ford, Chevy, Jeep, Honda. So let's say for each of these cars, we want to put in, let's say what color it is. We want the user to type in what color it is and uh, how much the car costs. Okay. So to go through each car, we need a loop, right? So we have for C in cars, right? That means that each C is one of these individual cars. The C is Ford, then it's Chevy, then it's Jeep, then it's Honda, and so on and so forth. And to see it, we'll just print out C so we can see we're going through each of the cars and print that out. And of course, one at a time, then it prints out the Ford, the Chevy, the Jeep, and Honda. Okay, so like I said, the first thing we want to do is we want the user to type in what is the color of the car. So let's have an input, have color equals input, enter uh, enter color of the, and then we'll tell it which car it is, right? So let's run that. So that should prompt me to type in the color for each car. Let's run that. Oh, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, we'll just say enter the color for now. Make it easy. Right, save it, run it, enter the color, and we just say red. Okay. Actually, we want to know what color it is or which car it is. So print enter data for crap, I'm at a mind blank here. We'll just put in C. So that'll tell you what the car is, and then we'll input the color of the car, right? So we run that. So for the Ford, enter the color. We're going to say it's red. For the Chevy, blue. For the Jeep, orange, terrible color. For the Honda, gray, right? And so that's how we loop through each car, and then we input a color for each car. Let's say we also want to enter in how much each car costed. So say the cost was input, enter the cost. All right. Keep the examples shorter. We'll just have 3 of these. So let's save it. Let's run that. So that should loop through each car, tell us what car it is, and then ask us to type in the color and the cost of those cars. So let's run that. For the Ford, color red, cost $5,000. For the Chevy, color is blue, cost is $50,000. And for the Jeep, it's gray, cost is $50. Whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. But now, let's say we want to do more with this data. Once this loop ends, we have lost all those other cars and colors, right? Or excuse me, all the colors and costs. So if you run this, if after the loop we just print out the color and cost, let's just have 2 of these so it doesn't take me as long to type in the information. At the end, we'll just print out the color and the cost, right? Outside of the loop. So Ford red, $50, Chevy blue, $60, right? So now when we got here to print out the color and the cost after the loop, you know, it just prints out the last values. It prints out the blue and the 60, right? We have lost this red and this 50 from the Ford. So how can we save that information? Well, we already have a cars array that says what the names of the cars are. Let's have a colors array. Let's have a costs array, right? So that whenever they type in the color, we can append it to that colors array. Whenever they type in the cost, let's just make this an integer. We'll add it to the costs array. So now after the loop, we can print the cars array, the colors array, and the costs array. All right, let's run that. Ford red, $50, Chevy blue, $60. If you see, now after the loop has gathered all the input, I still have all my cars, I have all my colors, and I have all my costs. Right? So that's how you can kind of associate other data with your primary array. So we started out with just this cars array, then we gathered data on each car. We gathered its colors and its costs, and we still have that data later. So then later on, if we want to print them all out at once, let's say we have another loop. Let's do it with an index and range. So for I in range, the length of cars. This is stuff we've seen in previous weeks. So we can print the cars I. We can print the colors I. We can print the costs of I. So what that should do, that should loop through how many cars there are and then print out the I index of cars, the I index of colors, the I index of costs. And so this index will keep all of our data associated with each other. When I is 0 and all these are 0, it's the cars, the colors, and the cost of that Ford. When I is 1, it's the name Chevy, the colors of the Chevy, and the cost of the Chevy. So let's run that. Ford red 50, Chevy blue 60. If you see it here, we have Ford red 50, Chevy blue 60. So you see that's with that I index, we access all of that data associated with that specific car. Okay. So as I said, we'll get to there how this helps with your final project. So let's say we make a function that figures out how much tax do we owe on a car. You know, we have the user input the cost. So let's figure out the amount of the tax, what the tax rate should be. All right, so let's define a new function, calculate tax. It will take as an argument the cost of the car. And let's just say I'm just going to make up the formula. The tax is the cost times 7%, right? That's 7% on the cost, and we'll return that tax. So that function there will calculate 7% sales tax on whatever you give it for the cost as the argument. All right. So down here, instead of printing out these cars, let's figure out the tax. We'll have another array called taxes, right? And so taxes.append, we need to calculate the tax for this car. And what is it? It's the costs at the I index. Right? Do you follow that? So the I will be 0, then the I in the first loop, then the I will be 1 the second time in the loop. And then it'll stop, and that's because we only have 2 items, 0 and 1. Okay, but this will compute the taxes. Actually, I'm sorry, I messed it up a little bit. The tax will equal, calculate the tax with that cost, and then when we want to append the tax. Yeah, because we actually got to call the function to calculate the cost. So we'll say the tax is equal to this function, calculate the tax, and we'll give it the cost of that specific car. It will return the calculated tax, and then we'll append that to our taxes array. So let's see what happens. Let's loop through them again. Range, length of cars. We'll just print out the cars, and we'll print out the calculated tax. We won't print out the colors or anything right now. Okay. So if we run this, we'll put in the information for each car, then we'll calculate the tax for each car, and then we'll go through and just print out the cars and how much taxes there were. Okay, let's run that. Ford is red, $50, Chevy blue, $60. And you see, so the Ford, and that's the tax, that's taxes on the Ford, and that's Chevy, and that's the taxes on the Chevy. And you can use floating point formatting to make all those extra decimal places go away if you want. I don't require it, but you can do it to make it look nice if you want. Okay, so we have used a function. We have called this function to figure out what the tax rate is, and then we save a tax back into this taxes array. Okay, let's have another function that determines, is this a high amount of tax or is it a low amount of tax? Meaning if I'm charged $3.50 for tax, is that a lot or is it a little? If I'm charged $4.2 for tax, is that a lot or a little? And we can decide that ourselves. So let's make another function, define is tax high, right? And we will give it as an argument the tax amount, right? So let's just say if it's less than $4, it's low. If it's greater than $4, it's high. Let's just say that's what we want to call it. So we can say if the tax is less than 4, say we'll return it's high. Else we'll say it's a low amount of tax. All right. So if I call this function and say $3 of taxes, oops, I should be the other way around, right? Low and high. So if the taxes is less than $4, then we're going to say it's low tax. If it is not less than 4, the else statement, then we'll say it's high. Okay. So as we're going through here calculating the tax, let's have yet we don't need an array for it, but let's say we want to know how many were low and how many were high. So we have a low taxes count. We'll start off being 0. We can have a high taxes count and make it 0. Okay. So at this point, we have some cars. Oops. We go through a loop and we have the user enter what is the color of the car and what is the cost of the car. Then we go through a loop saying calculate the taxes on the car. So let's have another loop. That will count how many are high tax and how many are low tax. So we can say if is tax high and what? We want the taxes of I if the taxes is high, actually it returns a string, it returns low or high. It is tax high, yep. If it returns high, then it's high, right? Then high taxes count plus equals 1. Else, low taxes count plus equals 1. And why is this? So we will loop through the array. We will call is the taxes high with the tax for that index. It'll put it right there. And so it returns low if it's low, returns high if it's high. So if that function returns high, then we increment our high taxes count. If it returns something other than high, in our case it's going to be low, then it'll increment the low taxes count. Okay? So let's just print that out. Let's print out.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Why is it the plus equals 1 and not just plus 1?
Okay. So if you just do this here, if you just look at the statement, if you do just plus 1, what is plus 1? I mean, you're performing a computation, but you're not saying what variable is equal to that computation. So when you say plus equals 1, this is a shortcut for high taxes equals high taxes plus 1.
Ah, okay. Now I understand.
For that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so at the end of this loop, we'll print out how many there are high taxes, and we'll print out how many are low taxes. All right, let's add a couple more cars here so we can get some more data to work with. Let's say a Honda, a Jeep, and a Subaru. Okay. So also print out the taxes array so we can manually kind of see which ones should be high, which ones should be low, and then we'll make sure that our count matches how many should be high and how many should be low. All right, let's save this. Let's run this. So Ford, say it's red for $30. Chevy is blue for $40. Honda is orange for $50. Jeep is gray for $60. And Subaru is purple for $70. So there is our array of taxes: 2.1, 2.8, 3.5, 4.2, 4.9. So by our definition, we said if the taxes are less than 4, then it's low. If it's greater than 4, it's high. So if we use our own definition, there should be 2 high taxes of 4.9 and 4.2, and 3 low taxes of 2.1, 2.8, 3.5. And sure enough, that's what we get when we do our printout. We do our printout of high taxes to low taxes is 3 items. So that ends up working. And that is really, this is a good skeletal outline of kind of what your final project should look like. Obviously, we know we're talking about cars and taxes and costs and colors and stuff here. You kind of need to translate that into what your final project is asking for, but it's really not too far off base for what your code should be looking like. And that's all I really had to talk about this evening, since there was no new material for the class. So I'm open to any questions you may have.
So I have one other question. For the final project, we don't need to indicate whether the individual is overweight, underweight, or normal. We just need the count of the number of people that are over, under, normal.
Yep, that's what the assignment calls for. It just wants to know how many are, either over, under, or at the right weight. So yeah, it just wants a count.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question, and it's about the. So when we're trying to get the indices to basically bring out, to bring out so the indices that will enable us to add the um sorry, I'm referring from from the project though, but um okay, so let me use the example in the class. So let's say we were trying to actually get the indices from, let me use the not the tags, color, uh okay, let me use from the taxes. So let's say we're trying to get the indices from the taxes, right?
Okay.
Is it possible? So it basically has to go from zeros to the number, let's say 0 to 5, or 0 to 4, because I had so much problems trying to just basically, after putting the input, right, and then I was trying to basically get out the computations so that I can now array them. But due to that indices, the variable indices, right, it
Mhm.
wasn't giving me what I actually expected. So that's the part I really was trying to look at,
Okay.
because
So when we're talking
I had
about
it quite.
the indices for any of these arrays, so let's just have a different problem right here. So let's say we have an array of t, whatever it is. We just have some numbers in it, 15, 16, 19, 4.5, whatever the case is. We just have this array of numbers right here, right? And
Yeah.
so how do we get the indices of those? Well, we have a loop that looks like this for I, with I being the indice. And you can name it whatever you want. You can call it J, you can call it this if you want to. The name for the
Yeah.
indice doesn't matter. I just use I to stand for indice. You say in range, not rand, range, and then you tell it how far you want to go. Now for this T array, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 items, right? So I could manually put 6 there. And if I just print out I, what the indice is, let me delete the rest of this stuff so I don't have to type it in. Well, I'll just delete out these other print statements so they don't interfere with it. Okay, so if I just print out I, then we'll see what the indice is, right? It's not going to tell us
Yeah.
what's in the array, but it'll tell us what the indice is. So let's run that. Oops. Brackets there. Save it and run it. And sure enough, there's our indices. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
And so if we want to access those individual elements in this T array, we can print out T at indice I. That will give us the values in that specific array. It doesn't give us the I anymore. The I just tells us which spot in the array do I want to access. So I can save that and I can run it. And you can see that now I'm getting the 1.2, the 13, and so on and so forth, all those values in that array. Now, instead of manually putting in the 6 here, there's a better way to do it, because what if I add 2 more things on here? Right? What if I just add 2 more things? If I run this as it is, I'm missing the last 2 items now, right? And that's
Okay.
because it's no longer 6, it should be 8, right? But again, why there's no need to manually put in that number, because it can change for any number of reasons. So what you want to do, you want to say the length of T. What this says is how many items are in this T array. That's how far I want my range to go. and then you access each one still with the T of I. And you can either print it out like that, or you can modify the value if you wanted. So let's say it add 1 onto each value in that array, and then we'll print it out. So if we run that, oops. You can see here in our array now, we have each of those values with 1 added onto it. All right, so that's how you use the indices to get at each individual item inside the array. Does that answer your question?
For some part of it. So okay, I think I get the point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this isn't your last chance, so I will be answering emails over the next couple of days. If you still run into problems, just email me directly and I'll try to help you out.
Yeah.
All right, I'll hold on for a couple more minutes if there are any more questions. I also just want to put out a reminder that I cannot accept any late turn-in of the project or any past assignments. Everything that you have outstanding needs to be turned in by 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday night. And that's because I have a very, very short turnaround to have everything graded in your final grade submitted. So if you have any old assignment you wish to resubmit, you have up until then, as well as the final project. It has to be turned in by that time.
And please, can we get a copy of this video so we can refer to it?
Yep, it's being recorded, so I will put it up. It takes a little bit of time to get posted on YouTube and processed, but probably within the hour or so, it'll be up, and I'll send out a link for it.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, doesn't seem to be any more questions, so I'm going to end this, and I will send out the link to the video as soon as it gets processed. All right, everybody have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.